I've learned at least how to run numbers on a new construction deal. I can see opportunities in other places, and I've been chasing land all over the place, and there's projects that we're entertaining in other places that are from 30 to possibly even 100 units for future developments.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast. I am your host, Matt Druin, and this is the show to watch or listen to if you are a tired residential real estate investor banging their head against the wall, buying duplexes and triplexes, just like I was back 8 years ago, and mystified as to what it takes to scale your portfolio to the moon and do your first larger commercial real estate deal. So we brought on a very special guest today. This is our first in-studio production here. Mr. Vlad Mirochnik is actually a close friend of mine that I've been linked up with for many years. Met him out at a meetup that created back several years ago called the Coffee Club, which now he runs. It is the longest running weekly in-person real estate meetup in Rochester. And dude, I'm so glad to have you on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, this is an honor.
So the first time I interviewed Vlad was on a show where we didn't have a guest that showed up and was kind of on the fly and that sort of thing. It ended up going onto the cutting room floor. So today I want to have Vlad on. I want you to tell your story. You know, I asked my guests, you're born, now you're here. What happened in between?
Yeah, a lot. So I was born in Ukraine originally, moved here as a teenager with my family in 95. The very first job that my dad took was in property maintenance. And naturally, he dragged myself and my brother along with him. So literally on day 3 of me being here, I was already pushing a lawnmower. I spent the rest of my teens in the cell phone business, my 20s in the car business, my 30s in the dry cleaning business, and now in my 40s, I'm focusing on real estate full time. The only thing that's been consistent throughout all these career changes have been, I've had one business partner that I met when I was 20. So 22 years later, we're still together. We're 50-50 in every deal, in every venture, and I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without him.
This is Anton, right?
This is Anton.
Okay,
yeah.
How did you and Anton meet?
So Anton, I had a collision shop and a little car lot. He came in as a client, either to get his wife's car fixed or to buy a car for his wife. I can't remember the details there, but he was recently laid off as an engineer, and he didn't want to go back to the corporate world. He liked the hustle and bustle of the car industry, and we partnered up. It's worked out. We share the same values, work ethics, have similar goals. That's why we've been able to work so well together. But completely different in terms of our responsibilities in the business and what each one of us does there.
Absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit because we met at Coffee Club back several years ago. At that point in time, I think you had a few investment properties. You've since exploded and taken it to the moon since then, and you've gone through multiple evolutions and revolutions as a entrepreneur. When I first owned you, I think you had a dry clean business, and you've had all these different businesses and that sort of thing. So let's kind of fast forward the clocks in terms of your first bigger real estate deal, which we will get into that in more detail in a case study we have after this to kind of go full disclosure. Vlad is a client of mine in the Go Bigger Sooner program, and so we're going to kind of pull apart that detail. He's got a pro forma with all the numbers and all the battle scars and the dead bodies, literally, that were found in that deal. But yeah, let's talk about that because I think that you had owned a couple small rental properties. You started to scale, and then you started to go into commercial. Tell me about the seminal moments involved with that.
Yeah. So the other consistency that Anton and I have had during these different career changes was that we invested in real estate on the side. I bought my first rental at 18, house on Avenue D. That was my first deal. And it was always a side thing, just for a way to invest. You know, being a self-employed guy, like there's no benefits, there's no medical insurance, there's no 401ks. And we knew that we have to dump some money into something long-term. So we created this portfolio to invest in real estate on the side, primarily for equity, not cash flow.
Yeah.
And then when we exited the dry cleaning business in 2019, we deployed that capital into real estate. At that point, when I met you, I think it was 2016 or 2017, probably had around 20 doors at that point. And it was a mixture of residential and small commercial. Most of those we still have. But yeah, we got into buying a lot of different asset classes, trying out what we're good at, and realized that we're not good at many things. So we tried flipping and short-term, mid-term, you name it, in different neighborhoods. What works best for us is A and B neighborhoods now, multifamily of 10 units plus.
Yeah.
And in preparation for this, we've been selling off quite a bit of our smaller stuff. Primarily, we've gotten rid of almost all of the single-family homes. And that's something that we decided on a couple of years ago, that we shouldn't buy any more single-family homes. It's that not just because they're difficult to manage or the numbers don't work. The market's already crazy with so many first-time home buyers not able to buy. I didn't want to compete with more people there. The market's been crazy. So going commercial was the plan. It started out with buying several 5 units, and then we bought a 24 unit that we discussed on the last podcast. And the most recent one is a 14 unit that we just turned around.
Absolutely. So we're definitely going to dive into that one. I want to talk about the one that we covered that is in the lost footage.
Sure.
The 24 unit. And by the way, Vlad has become the titular mayor of a little village called Macedon. Fell in love with that town, and it's a 24 unit deal that you bought. Tell me about the origin of that of that deal, because it's super interesting in terms of how you found it and everything that happened since then.
Sure. Macedon was already our market. We had several buildings there already, and I drove by this 24 unit daily. One day, and I had reached out to the owner a couple times by mail, never heard from him. One day I saw a red for rent sign in the yard, and I was on my way to Lowe's, pulled over, caught up with the guy. He showed me an apartment. I pretended to be a prospect tenant just to get in the door of the apartment. And when the door shut, I was like, well, actually, I don't want to rent this. I want to buy the property from you. And that started about a year-long ordeal. Eventually, I had to involve another broker because I couldn't get it done on my own.
Okay.
She got the job done. What happened during our due diligence, there was a devastating fire, and there was an accident, and 8 of the units were lost. We still went through with the purchase with intentions of rebuilding. The seller just wanted their insurance proceeds. He was an older gentleman in his 70s, original owner.
Yeah.
That built the property in the late 80s. And we agreed, because the closing took so long, we agreed to take early possession.
Okay.
So I took early possession of the property in April. So we started cleaning up the debris after the fire, and I took over the management of the existing tenants. We We actually closed the deal in July. So it took from April till July to close. 2 weeks after we closed, an identical second fire happened. This time it was negligence, and it's neither of the times it was electrical or anything. Both times it was tenant negligence.
Yeah.
So we went from a 24 unit to an 8 unit. And it's the first 2 buildings that burned down. The last remaining one is all the way at the end of the property, so you can't even see it until you pull in.
Okay.
And this is center of town, next door to a school.
Very visible.
Very visible. And the shocker there was that we were underinsured.
Oh, really?
And we had a limit of $1 million per occurrence on a total loss. That more than satisfied the bank because of the structure of how we financed it. So they never asked for full replacement. We never revisited it with the insurance broker, which we shared with the seller for over 20 years. We both had the same broker, so we didn't make any changes to the policy.
Yeah.
To close, and then planned on sitting down maybe a month later to readjust the coverage. Well, in those 2 weeks, we lost that building in about a $1.8 million rebuild cost. The coverage was only for $1 million, and after the adjusters and cleanup and loss of rents, and it was only about $700,000 left.
Yeah.
So
ouchies.
Yeah. So that's it was a painful lesson. But finally, 2.5 years later, we're ready to rebuild.
Absolutely. Now that's an interesting story in of itself, because one of the things that really impresses me about you, Vlad, is that you've, during this evolution as a business owner, you've recognized where your weaknesses are. And the one thing is just in terms of the prospecting part of the thing. You called the guy on the sign, you showed up, I think that you were covered in paint and that sort of thing. You walked to the unit and realized that you couldn't get this thing across the finish line. So then you actually called in somebody to help you with that. And I think that this is skill sets that are so applicable to commercial, because one of the things that's really attractive about commercial is the deals are bigger. So there's more room to keep many people interested, people that have extreme core competencies and zones of genius in terms of what their specific skill set is. And I think that that's really, really cool, and probably a great way to build a foundation going forward. So kind of tell me about taking me forward from there. You had this thing, you showed me a video of you like on a, basically like a backhoe or something like that, taking some of these buildings down, doing a little DIY action. So, take me from there. You had another juncture in where you're like, dude, I can rebuild this thing and do it on my own, but maybe I think there could be another option to make this more of a success. So take me from there.
Yes, actually, you nailed it there. About my limitations and skill level. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I've learned at this point that turning certain parts of a project over to someone that has more experience is far more beneficial than trying to figure it out on your own. In residential, there's very little opportunity for that, just because of how tight the deals are, because of how they get financed. In larger deals, it's way easier to bring additional people in who are not just the investors, not just the silent money people, an actual operator, a co-GP who would operate the property with me. And actually, that's our new strategy. We're going with every new deal is going to be partnered with a new individual or set of them who are experts in their field. I've never done a ground-up development, especially of this size, so I didn't want to learn as I went. There's a lot of money at stake, and so the idea came from an introduction of our mutual friend Andy, who introduced me to the builder and this builder is interested in growing their portfolio as well. A very reputable builder with a long established career, like third generation. And so we're structuring the deal where the builder is a co-GP. And we're selling equity, which is maybe not the best idea, but it gets the job done. And I'd rather split that equity with another partner and know for sure that it's going to get done than try to learn it. And also, this is opening up doors for many other projects now that I can see that we can work well together. We like the people as a partner, and so that's the plan.
So let's talk about this because, maybe up until this point in time, it was just you and Anton, all right? And now you're like, okay, we have this project. I'm gonna have to give away some equity. This is to the builder partner and that sort of thing. And tell me about what types of doors that really opened up, because this kind of like took on a life of its own in terms of finding this relationship with the builder. And I know both of you guys, so you guys have a very, very strong alignment of values and interest, and they have the track record and the ability to perform on a very, very tough thing, which is construction. So tell me about the story about how this kind of like took a life on its own with other opportunities that have come down your pipeline.
Yeah. Now that I've learned at least how to run numbers on a new construction deal, I can see opportunities in other places. And I've been chasing land all over the place, and there's projects that we're entertaining in other places that are from 30 to possibly even 100 units for future developments. The key with this first deal is that I get to sit in on all the meetings, and I'm copied in on all the emails. I'm learning as I go. So hopefully it'll make it easier on the next one. That'll be a lot bigger.
So tell me what the status of the project right now in Macedon.
We'll hopefully have final approvals by the end of this month. And ideally, we'd like to break ground before the end of the year. It's kind of seasonal here with our winters. But one thing so far that I've learned is that new construction takes way longer. Just the permitting process and the early development and design takes forever. Takes months and months. Hopefully in another year we'll have these up.
So let's talk about the capital stack. We always like to talk about that in the show, right? So on the acquisition, I'm just making assumptions here. On the acquisition of the original 24-unit deal, which is now history, this was you and Anton basically bootstrapped from other, sale of another business or other properties and that sort of thing. Is that kind of how that went on the acquisition?
Yeah, we got pretty lucky, and our lender gave us a mortgage on it, despite the fact that there was a building missing and it was technically not mortgageable. Yeah. But the bank we work with had comfort in it. It was a 70-30 LTV. I think we only had to bring in maybe $350 to the deal. To close it. Some of that was raised through our network of investors. And then the capital to rebuild the existing 8, the remaining 8, I should say. So all those units got complete makeover because of smoke and fire damage and all that. That capital came internally from our business. We didn't have to raise capital for that. Now with the new construction, the numbers are way bigger. Yeah. And we're already fully raised, but we did have to go out and raise about first 20% of the build.
Okay, so the bank is doing the other 80% then?
Yeah, correct. So getting a construction loan for the other 80.
Okay, on a draw schedule.
Right.
So in terms of raising capital, all right, what was your methodology, and what is your methodology with how you're able to do this deal? And going forward, what different things would you apply, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, we keep it very simple. I have a very small network of investors. We keep recycling the same 7 to 10 people. None of these raises have been big enough to need strangers. These are all people who I've known for years, or Anton. These are friends, relatives, neighbors. These are people who know us very well. So it was fairly easy because I don't need to pitch any pitch decks or have any presentations for that. It was fairly easy to raise for that deal.
So what did that conversation look like in terms of presenting an opportunity to participate with you guys in that? Because people out there that are short on cash, that want to scale into commercial, are scared to death with asking that question. I call it popping the question, like you're asking somebody to marry you. And I think that, people kind of get it in their heads that they just need to essentially, grab themselves by the gonads, whatever reproductive organ they have, and just freaking, and just say it, right? So what did that conversation look like originally? Because I think that the original conversation or how you did that or how you got up to that point is really, really important for people to understand watching this, because that conversation turned into repeat business, repeat partnership, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Because these were all the people who we knew, they were aware of what we do. Real estate is fairly easy to raise capital for. Unlike, for example, I had to raise some capital for the dry cleaning business when we needed some equipment, and nothing is secured. Because all the real estate was leased. 90% of the value is in the goodwill of the business. And I had people lending me money not really knowing whether they're going to get it back or not.
Yeah.
With real estate, it'll never go down to zero. My operation will never ruin a project. And even if I get hit by a bus, there's still a value in that property.
Yeah.
So it's pretty conservative. Also, the deals that we get into are all very conservative, especially at this point. Our wild days are gone, I think. So, and then pitching it, at one point, I just had a mental shift that I'm not asking these people for a handout. I'm not asking them for money. I'm bringing them an opportunity. This is a safe opportunity that we're making money on. I'd be a fool not to offer it to my friends or family. And yeah, none of these have been syndicated, so we didn't have to do the 503C or whatever it's.
Yeah, whatever alphabet number soup that they have out there.
Very simple. We have not had a deal that we needed to raise capital from more than 2 people on. Been very lucky with just having people. Just 1 or 2 investors going into a deal. These are typically short term, so they get their money within a year or a year to 3 back, depends on the size of the deal. And it's just rinse and repeat.
So you create a lot of value in the investment community here. I mean, your help alone, I think, has been helpful in creating, I'd say, millions of dollars worth of wealth in our community. Like I'm not bragging. I mean, I'm not overstating that. I seriously believe that. So Vlad, in terms of your words of advice for people out there on the capital raising side of things, I mean, a lot of people are obsessed with like, oh, I can't find deals, and then they don't do any work on their OPM, that sort of thing. In terms of like the science, the how-to get started right now, what somebody can do today, this week, this month to position themselves to widen that OPM bottleneck that we all face as growing real estate investors. What are your advice for them?
The way I did it is I took a hypothetical deal. And I have a short list of properties that are on my wish list to buy. I have them all underwritten, and I adjust those numbers every like 3-6 months. I took that as a case study to the people to show what the next deal is going to look like. And so far, most of our deals look similar. They're all multifamily for the most part. similar unit count, showing that you've already done something gives you the track record. As far as pitching for someone new with no experience, the easiest is going to your friends and family. These people they trust you, they know you already, and if your own if your own friends and family can't support you, then you shouldn't be counting on strangers. It's double, it's twice as scary because you still need to have a relationship with these people, and you still need to see them, and you don't want the money to get in the way. But if you have a solid business plan and you are completely transparent with every step of the way of what you're going to do to this deal and how that person is getting their money back, what the schedule is, and sticking to it, then that's what gets it done. Once you have a couple investors get payouts, they tell their friends. So it gets easier as you go. Right now, we're raising for a couple other deals, and I'm only reaching out to people who I've spoken to before. We don't need to go out and tell everybody about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I firmly believe that you can, do your first like $20 million worth of real estate deals without ever having to go out to strangers. And I think that that's why it's incredibly important to not only deepen your network in terms of cultivating those relationships, but also constantly expanding it as well. So how do you do that?
Growing, I have very ambitious goals. So growing is always the main agenda. We're growing, looking at deals all the time. And every one of those deals has to be bigger and harder or more financially bigger. Shit, what was the question again?
How do you systematically keep growing your network?
Okay. Oh, yeah. The other thing is leveraging your portfolio that you have, or leveraging any asset that you have. In order to grow, you have to shed the ones that are not growing. So we would look over the properties that are not performing, whether that neighborhood is just not appreciating well enough, or certain regulations prohibit it from running a tight operation there, and we'd sell them off.
Yeah.
During COVID, we pretty much exited mostly from Rochester, as far as the city of Rochester. There's only a couple properties that we still have in the better neighborhoods. So yeah, and that money was turned over into bigger deals in other places where the appreciation is much higher. Our portfolio by design was not meant for cash flow. It is an appreciation play and a retirement plan. We may be different than other investors, where Anton and I have not taken any money out of our rental portfolio ever.
Yeah.
And it's by design. It's just growing into what it is. For 20 years, it was something on the side. Well, now it's the main deal. So
absolutely. So what's next for you guys before we close out?
We have a handful of projects that we're negotiating now. We have a couple ground-up builds that will hopefully break ground this year. And we're partnering up with new GPs and new deals, and still growing. But we're just starting, actually.
Yeah.
we're just starting, because the ambition is to double it in the next 3 years.
Absolutely. Well, Vlad, thank you so much for going on. We're actually going to jump on to our next installment here. So if you're listening to this, watching this, and you want to get in on the exact story around the fire-breathing dragon that Vlad and Anton had to slay and turn it into a fire-breathing unicorn, definitely subscribe to your YouTube channel and check out our next installments exclusively on our YouTube channel about Bremen Point and the evolution of that deal, and also how Vlad and I worked together and why Vlad decided to join Go Bigger sooner and the value he got out of that deal as one of our many graduated clients out of that program. So Vlad, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. This was fun.